All right. Well, let's get started, folks. I was asking Jacob if there's any topics we want to hit on. I have an idea, kind of, but I wasn't
Did you
sure if
guys see?
Paxton.
I know. Brandon saw my poll in LinkedIn.
Yeah, it was a terrible
Yeah.
poll. Very critical
Yeah,
of it.
I saw your comment, and I don't get your comment.
I feel like there's two types of intros. There's
Sh-
hey,
sh-
welcome to Below the Fold. I'm your host Jacob, and we've got this person, this person. Let's get into the show.
Are we in
That's
the show right now? Is this it?
let's call it the
Why
show.
do you keep
Sure.
asking that? Come on,
I just don't
Let's
know that this content is worthy of being recorded.
talking about a poll on LinkedIn.
Yeah, this particular poll.
What's wrong with the poll?
It's no. By all means, go talk about it.
No, I mean, if you got a problem with it, tell me
Hey,
why.
no, this is great. This is great.
Here,
Our
let me
listeners-
make
our
let me make
listeners
my
will
point
love it.
here to Jacob. There are two types of intros. The one I just outlined, where you're basically just introducing the title of the show and who's hosting, and you move on. And then there's actual like contextual intros where it's like, hey, so welcome to the show. Today I had the chance to sit down with so and so, and we had a really great conversation about this, this, and this. So with that said, let's hop into the show. And it's usually recorded after, and they kind of introduce the topic and who the person is. That is a contextual intro. And the way you set it up was, do you like intros? Yes or no? And it was like, yes, I have to have my context. No, it was a waste of time. And if you're using that to dictate whether or not Below the Fold has an intro, I would argue that our intros never offered context. And so if you were just to say yes or no, like to our current or our, you could say former intro, most people would say, yeah, I don't miss it. That's my hypothesis. And that was my argument, was that our intros were not the type that like spent 2 minutes introducing the conversation.
Yeah,
But that's something we could offer afterwards. Like we get done recording and then you're like, what's up, everybody? Jacob here. Today we had a really good conversation about TikTok and we tried to convince Paxton and all this stuff. So with that said, let's hop into the show. And then it just cuts into the conversation beginning. That would be a better intro than what was before.
Regardless of how people interpreted it, you're the only one who complained about not understanding, and it's almost evenly split between people who like intros and people who don't.
Yes.
well, yeah. But your poll says I need the context. Our intro never provided context.
Yeah, and that's not what I was even referencing. What I said
Okay.
was we've taken out all intros, regardless of what it is.
So you're saying an intro
And
with
then the
context or
and
no?
then the comment, and then I quoted someone talking about 2 minutes of dude bro talk. Anyway, yeah, no, I get that there are at least two types of intros. And maybe I'm missing some context as far as explaining what I was looking for, but really first of all, LinkedIn only gives you 30 characters for your
polls.
your poll options. And I was going to do more, but it wasn't built to let me do what I wanted to do. So still
That's
interesting.
Fair. That's fair. That's a fair poll in that context. See, I needed more context to your contextual poll. So
Okay. So, I don't really care. In fact, I've put some thought into this whole intro thing. Like when I've really enjoyed just like going right into it, because I think about shows that have like music and then they have the exact same intro every single time. And if you're constantly listening to that show, I mean, there are tons of podcasts where I'm just like skip because it's the same thing. But the one argument I've heard that goes against that is if someone is coming in and listening for the first time to an episode that has no intro, they have no context to what this is about. And I think that's where that quote comes from, where it's like, dude, I have no idea what you're talking about. And all of a sudden I'm just like thrown into this conversation. But I like that. I feel like that's the format we always were going for since day one was, hey, this is just like a conversation. And it's as if someone's just like comes in and sits down at the table and is just listening.
yeah, I think we already do a fairly good job though at introducing the topics anyway. in an organic way where it's like, oh, did you guys hear about this? No. Well, let me quick tell you about it. And then we
Plus, we write it in the description of the freaking episode.
Yeah.
Anyway,
fair enough.
So no
Okay.
intro.
Well, I'm okay. No intro unless people come at us. But I bet these 19 people have never even listened to. That's how many people.
Why don't we just
voted.
ask our one listener what he likes?
Hey, YouTube, we're getting some comments rolling in, all right, from some outside
spam
folks.
Guys.
Not spam. One of them was a spam.
I feel like they were, at least yesterday they were full. Are you talking about the "Can we be friends"?
Yeah, that's spam. I get that all the time. So I'm just like, absolutely, we can be friends. But the other one was like, oh, the answer is love or something like that, which was in specific reference to the conversation that we had on Tuesday. That was not a spam. That was like
I thought that was spam.
No, I felt like that was a.
What were they referencing?
Just like what brand should be doing, and it was like, you know, just during this whole week of news,
gotcha,
and it was just like, oh, love's the answer, yada yada. I thought there was tie-in, so I'm convincing myself it wasn't spam.
No, okay, I that's more of a connection than I was able to make. So well done.
Thank you.
All right, Brandon, you had something you want to talk about.
Well, I told you I hesitated.
Like a huge announcement.
It is huge. The problem is I'm educating myself on this, so I'm not the expert. But I'll ask you this, Jacob, have you heard the news of Google rolling out a major update in 2021?
No, I haven't heard anything about that.
Oh, this is big, Jacob.
Bigly. They are.
You know, before you get into it, this is really interesting. I read a lot of books, and one of the plot devices that authors use is someone who knows nothing and allows the main characters to educate them, or the main character is the person who knows nothing and the supporting characters educate them to move the plot along. So now we have a plot device within our show that allows you to educate me on the Google update. So
I feel like that's how a lot of radio ads are now, where it's like,
wait, so are you the main character and we're supporting characters? Is that what you're getting at?
What's interesting is that that's what you pulled out, because I posed it in both ways.
I hear a lot of radio ads that take that format, where it's like, hey mom, my toilet just broke. Well, did you call Whipple Plumbing? Because they can help you out. Oh, but it's 3 a.m. I don't know if they'll come out. Oh, they have 24-hour service. And it's like a story form, and they just like run the ad that way.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know if that's what you're referencing, that style.
No, that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's a plot device.
Have you heard about Page Experience, Jacob? No, you haven't?
Well,
okay, well, let me tell you about it.
Well, think about like any major story. You got the Lord of the Rings with the Hobbit who knows nothing, and then Gandalf comes in and educates him on what he needs to do. I mean, it's the hero's journey, right? And at the beginning, they know nothing. So I'm on my journey. Educate me.
He's the hero.
Right. So I'll just give you the super high level here. Basically, 2020, Google has come out and has said that there is going to be a major update in 2021. And it's so big that they have said that they will be giving us 6 months notice to when the update will roll out. One of the major signals, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Paxton, because I'm educating myself here. One of the major signals that they are going to be using in this update is called Page Experience, which has a lot to do with, I would say, page level metrics, how users are actually interacting with the page that they land on. Would you say that's correct, Paxton? Or am I out of line there?
Sorry, say that one more time.
The Page Experience signal is looking at not just, I mean, we already know that, like, if you go to a page and you bounce and you go back to search, like that's a user metric, whatever that they use to say, okay, this didn't hit the result. It sounds like page level is going a level deeper to where they're actually looking how the user is interacting with that page. So it's not just a matter of, is the user staying on your site? Is this page really serving its purpose? So it seems like CRO is actually going to play a big role in your SEO. Customer experience, just on how the user is using your website and navigating around. It sounds like Google's looking at those metrics and using that to determine the quality of your website. When I say we, 97th Floor just pushed out a big analysis of this this week, and maybe I should share my screen real fast. Share screen, and here we go. You can see here, we've got these three areas: loading, interactivity, and visual stability. And so these are kind of like the three. So it's inaccurate to say that page experience is a metric. It's more so a signal, and within page experience,
metrics.
It's a combination of these different things here. And so, and part of page experience is what's called core web vitals. And that's kind of, I guess you could say that's the parent, and then page experience is the bigger parent of that. But it's a huge shift to, like, I guess backing up before we get too technical, I thought it was fascinating. Like, Google's never done this before in my understanding of, Google's algorithm updates. Like, the fact that they are announcing this far in advance and saying we're going to give you 6 months notice. I'm not sure if this counts as the 6 months notice and it's like going to roll out in January, or if they're saying sometime in 2021.
Sometime in 2021, but we'll give you 6 months notice.
So really, we could be getting more than 6 months notice, unless they're saying like they're
more than 6 months notice.
They're going to be getting. Do you think they're going to get more detailed when they announce, or do you think like this is the details that we're going to get? And from there,
I wouldn't be surprised if more details come out. I mean, I bet it's probably at least 8 months out.
What's interesting is you were saying in a earlier conversation before this, Paxton, about how historically Google, there's always been the belief among industry professionals that Google is already analyzing and factoring in like page level metrics, like how a user is interacting with the website. However, I think you made a good point of like Google will deny those because of privacy concerns and whatnot, possibly bad PR or whatnot. I feel like this is Google almost accepting like, yeah, we're looking at page level stuff. Or am I misinterpreting this wrong?
No, the discussion we were talking about were user engagement metrics, which some people think that Google is looking at time on page, whether or not you click onto something else, all that. Like basically Google is following that user and seeing what they do to measure what's happening. And one of those things is bounce rate. I don't believe, and I haven't been able to, well, I haven't looked too hard, but I don't believe Google, I mean, everything that I've seen, Google says we don't use those metrics. But the thing is, I think what some people are talking about is different than what others are talking about. So when people say bounce rate, I think when Google denies it, what they're denying is that we don't use the data in your analytics account to measure what's going, like we don't use those as ranking factors. And so bounce rate is one of those metrics. And so I think some people think that's what's happening, and Google's saying, no, we're not doing that, but we're talking about two different things. I've seen it firsthand. I had a client who, they hired us, we were doing, they're still a client of ours. And this was probably 5 years ago. We were doing work, our rankings were climbing. We got on the first page, we got to the top half of the first page. And then the client got pitched by some other crappy agency on autocomplete optimization. And what this agency did, and I say agency, I believe it was like one or two people. And what they would do is they would set up a bot that would go to Google. They would type the initial keyword we wanted to rank for, and then that they wanted the brand to autocomplete once someone types in that keyword. And so they would type in that keyword and they would go down and click our client's result. And I believe they would type the keyword and then type the brand name on the end of it, so that it would train Google that anytime someone types this, they also, might be interested in this brand name. And they had a bot do this, so it would do it like 1,000 times an hour. And I'm sitting here looking at analytics, and I see all this traffic come in. But this bot, what it's doing is it's searching for a phrase and then clicking our result and then going back to Google and then searching for a phrase, clicking the result and going back. So suddenly our bounce rate just like skyrocketed in analytics. But what I think Google was seeing was that someone was searching for something, they were clicking on the result, and they were going back to Google and searching again. And the moment they did it, like within the same like day or two, our rankings across the board started tanking. And then I called them. I was like, you got to stop. You got to tell us, like, have this agency turn that off. They turn it off. And then our rankings recovered in a week or two. So I think that's pretty solid evidence that Google is using bounce rate, however you want to call it, pogo sticking, going back to Google search. Now, whether or not they're using clicking on the page and going to another website or going deeper into the website, I don't know. But I am convinced that they're using the metric of, if someone clicks on this and they go back, that's an indication that they didn't find what they were looking for. And so we're going to rank whatever that result was lower next time.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know why they wouldn't do that, but.
Right, but they deny that they do that. Again, though, I think we're having two different conversations. When they deny it, I think they're saying, we don't use your data in analytics. But what I'm saying is, yeah, you're not. You're measuring something else, and maybe they don't call it bounce rate.
I also understand why they wouldn't want to use their own analytics, because it could be set up wrong, or
Sure.
There's too much customization that can happen that could screw things up. But the pogo sticking thing makes sense. Bounce rate is an interesting topic. I just talked about it yesterday because for some reason it's used as a health metric, and I don't think that's right. Like,
it depends on what page it is, and
yeah, and my argument is, I think in most cases, meaning at least 51%, if someone is Googling something, the purpose of Google is to get you to the exact piece of content that you're looking for. So you're not having to navigate a website in order to find it. So if I go and I type in a question and then I click on a result, in most cases, it's going to give me the answer I'm looking for. Now I'm not talking about transactional or I'm talking about a very specific type of keyword that as soon as I get my answer, I leave. And that's positive.
You should have, and we're talking about bounce rate in analytics, right? I believe the default in analytics is that if the user is on the page for 30 seconds or more, and then they leave, that does not count towards your bounce rate. But as a user or as the owner of analytics, you have the ability to change that number.
Yeah.
So if you have a page that just gives people the short, quick answer, you may want to change that to, if someone leaves after 7 seconds or 10 seconds, then that's not a bounce. But it's still, so if you build it in the right way, then it can be a very useful indicator. If someone bounces after 2 seconds, that's an indicator that they saw and left. Like they didn't consume anything, they didn't absorb what they were looking for. No one's going to find their answer in 2 seconds. So but all that
I think
said,
more helpful is to put bounce rate on like a flow of, like, if you have 3 pages that they have to get to in order to do an action that you're wanting them to do, measuring bounce rate allows you to see where the fall off is. And anyway, we're probably spending too much time on bounce rate, but it's just top of mind for me because this came up yesterday. And we're actually running out of time. I feel like we didn't really get into anything in much detail. But my question, so
good thing we spent 5 minutes on that poll about intro.
Yeah, man. No, I'm glad we did. That's actually probably the best thing we spent our time on so far, next to the last 30 seconds of talking about the poll again. So I have a question about this Google update. The only difference I'm seeing really is that, 1, they're being more visible about what they're looking for, and 2, they've come up with some more fancy names. But beyond that, it seems like, I mean, what has changed? I mean, you should have good site speed. You should have good time to first byte. You should have good content. Like what's the difference? Like what do you change about your strategy?
Well, they're also adding, it looks like, and again, I'm learning about this, and I've had some side conversations with people here at 97th Floor who know much more about this, and maybe we can bring them on for like another episode and dig deeper into this. I think Joe would be awesome to chat with because he's been just engrossed in this. But they've even updated, like, according to what I'm reading here, page speed insights, Google Search Console, the Chrome user experience report. They've actually updated new elements that pertain to the core web vitals, which is what they're looking at. It's interesting. Like, I was looking at some of the recommendations that came from Joe at 97th Floor, and one of the examples he gave was if your web page has a chart that lists out qualifying times for the Boston Marathon, not marathon, turn that into a calculator, provide graphics, like make it more interactive. Basically, you're kind of like doing what Facebook is so good at and some of these other websites. Like, you're trying to you need to improve elements that keep people on your website as long as possible is one of the big things. I asked, I know we're short on time, and maybe this sets it up for future conversations. I was asking, I'm like, okay, at the end of the day, how big is this really? Like, I know it's big news that Google is doing this, and that's unique. But in terms of on the big totem pole of what are all the signals that Google looks at, link building and stuff like that is obviously very high. Where does this stand? Because is this just going to be something that's new and it's noteworthy, but it's way down there? I was told that this is going to be as big as like link building and whatnot. Like these signals are going to be so powerful, hence why Google's giving so much notice. It's not just a thing of like, oh, they're giving notice of this small little thing. Like, supposedly from the research that Joe, who's the VP of SEO at 97th Floor, from what he's seeing, this is going to have major, major impacts. And it's something that people are going to be focusing on just as much, if not more, than something like link building, which is pretty significant because for as long as I've been in the professional digital marketing SEO world, link building has always been in like the top 5 metrics that every industry professional says, yes, this is how you positively influence search results. So I think it's a bigger conversation, and I think it could be good for us to kind of spend a little bit more time digging into this and having a conversation maybe next week on this or something like that. But it's big news, and we're still learning a lot about it. Obviously, we don't have all the answers, but there's a lot of smart people looking into this, and I thought that was just really cool that Google would add that. The fact that they give us 6 months notice makes me think like, yeah, this has to be huge, that it's going to change the landscape, so to speak. Maybe I'm overplaying it, but that's the gist that I'm getting, that it's something that SEOs and marketing leaders need to be paying attention to if you're serious about marketing online in 2021, which I assume 100% of marketers are. So,
100%.
yeah, maybe that keeps things a little more time friendly here.
Well, I think this is a good intro to another episode where we dive a little bit deeper and give me some time to understand better what this is.
I like it.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Like, comment, and subscribe.